Hello Summoners and welcome back to another ProGuides video. My name is Nathan Ng and today we'll be talking about our predictions for the 15 most broken champions on patch 11.24. One of the most important things in a constantly evolving game like League of Legends is to be able to adapt with the meta, and that's why we're here for you. If you want to know what's going to be OP before the patch even hits, you'll be ready to hit the ground running without even having to test and see if that one buff or nerf really made that much of a difference. And if you don't know how to play any of these OP picks or you're just a little bit rusty, this will give you a few days to brush up on them in some normals or on a smurf. And before we get started, I just want to say that this list is not in any particular order. It's just a list of champions that we think are going to be some of the strongest and most influential picks on the patch. We'll be starting things out with YONE. He's currently one of the most overtuned champions in the game, being able to pump out huge DPS while also healing for way too much with each hit. Basically, if you aren't locked down with a ton of CC, you function as a 2-in-1 lifesteal tank and hyper carry. Last season, general consensus was that YONE top was the only right way to play him, but due to the meta shifts, he's currently doing really well in both lanes, with bad matchups being very few and far between. Pretty much the only way to do bad on YONE is to force dumb trades early on that it leaves you open to jungle ganks. Be safe, don't tilt, and play to scale, and you'll easily be carrying most of your games. Whether you're trying to learn to abuse broken champions on this list or how to deal with them when you end up on the wrong side of the matchup, if you really want to speed up the process, you should check out ProGuides.com. We have courses from all your favorite streamers and pros like CoreJJ, Afremu, and XSmithy to really help you understand how to play your role. And if you want a more personalized experience, we have coaches available 24/7, ready to help you guys become the best. Our coaches are top-tier players that have spent years climbing the solo queue ladder to get where they are today, and they're ready to share everything that they learned with you. So stop spinning the wheels on your own and get on the fast track to higher elo today. Now let's get back on topic, shall we? Next up on the list we have Lulu. She spent most of Season 11 as the most broken support in the game, dominating enchanters and engaged supports alike. Towards the end, she started to fall off a little bit, but now she's back on the top spot. With high DPS from Pixie and the ability to neutralize the enemy carry with her polymorph, she's incredibly strong in 2v2 trades early on. This allows her to easily babysit hyper carries to later stages of the game, where she then enables them to pump out huge damage and keeps them safe from diving threats. If you want something that's both super impactful and easy to play, Nunu is doing super well so far in this preseason. It's not like Nunu or the items that he uses got any significant changes. It's more like, well, let's say the other OP picks have been slowly whittled away, leaving the top spots open for other picks. And with Nunu already coasting by in high 8s here for the last few months, he was ready to swoop in and take up one of the top spots. Nunu has a lot of strengths and very few weaknesses. His clear speed is pretty fast and leaves him very healthy. His ganks are really easy to execute, so more than anything, you just need good pathing and timing to pick up some free kills. And arguably his biggest strength is his ability to combo his Q with Smite to deal nearly 2k damage to objectives, ensuring that it's never actually a 50-50. Another jungler that has risen in power in the recent meta shifts is Graves. He's in the same tier as Nunu, but he's basically the exact opposite. While Nunu is all about ganking for his teammates, playing for objectives, and being a frontliner, Graves is a much more selfish pick. He just wants to soak up as much farm as possible, and if he does gank, it just gets him fed to carry harder, not to help the lanes. And of course, most of the time a gank ends in you helping shove the wave in, or aka taxing the entire next wave. But the reason Graves players do all of this is because he really does have some pretty insane carrying power. He has both huge bursts and high consistent damage, while also being mobile enough to chase down targets and kite scarier opponents. Up next we have Nami. Ever since the buffs both she and the Imperial Mandate received towards the end of Season 11, she's been making a splash. Not only is she super impressive, but she's basically impossible to mess up. Her only real skill shot is Q, and while it can be somewhat difficult to land consistently, it's also more of an afterthought really. Nami's real strength comes from how impressive her W and E are for trading, so as long as you can get your W to bounce at least once, but preferably twice, you'll be basically 1v2ing the lane. Also, if you run Electrocute on her and then she plays with Lucian, he procs Electrocute when he uses his E and auto attacks. It's pretty ridiculous. When the 11.21 changes to Vi were released, I honestly didn't expect much to change. It seemed like there were changes focused mostly on making things more consistent rather than being a huge direct buff. But I was so wrong. A little consistency goes a long way, and I'm not just talking about in League of Legends, I'm talking about in relationships, and it doesn't matter, it's a good tip nonetheless, okay? Vi has some really strong dueling capabilities, but you don't really want to be able to force fights too hard early. Once you Q in, you're not really able to chase nor escape if you need to. So with that in mind, just play the early game pretty safe, focusing on clearing up to level 6. Once you do have your ultimate, look to gank for an ally with huge burst damage or CC, or preferably both, for guaranteed kills. Here's one last bit of advice. Try Axiom Mark on her as your second or third item so you can constantly be looking to make picks with her ultimate. It's really fun. If you want something that you can play on autopilot, you might want to give Tahm Kench a go. He's a super impressive top laner and he's incredibly easy to play. Basically just right click your enemy enough and then just win trades. And then you land your Q if you want and then you'll be running the top lane in no time. Out of lane, Tom is a nigh unkillable demon. In teamfights, he may be kiteable, but just keep pressuring the enemy backline in fights, and whether you actually get to them or not, you'll be able to soak up insane amounts of damage while zoning them from hitting the rest of your team. A change that I'm personally super excited to see is the mana cost from SAMIRA's ultimate being removed. It may be a single ability being buffed, but for me, it's enough to send her into the A tier or maybe even higher. Everybody knows SAMIRA can pop off hard in mid and late game teamfights, but in the earliest stages, she usually runs out of mana way too fast. This buff is nice because it'll allow her to pop off in fights that she should be able to, without just randomly overbuffing her damage and just some other lazy balancing. The one thing I do want to add is that SAMIRA's win rate is probably going to go up, but won't be anything too crazy. Bear in mind, she's a pretty difficult champion to play, and there are a lot of people that tank her stats. But we all probably know that a good SAMIRA can 1v9 a game even prior to these buffs. Another nasty 1v9 champion that makes a list is KASSADIN. KASSADIN is a champion that I'm not exactly hyped to have in the meta. He's just a really unfun champion to deal with, and he's supposed to be that super hard scaling champion that is useless all game, but once he reaches level 16, he goes Super Saiyan. But now, he seems to come online just a little bit too quickly. Just hitting level 6 is usually enough to win most lanes, and once he has just 2 items, he can usually carry skirmishes pretty easily. And if you do play for the scale, just throw yourself in the side lane and soak up as much XP as you can. Taking a look back at the jungle again, we have KASSADIN. Many assassins have been shoved out of the meta since they relied on Goredrinker and Conqueror to turn them into assassin bruiser hybrids. But KASSADIN isn't just doing okay, he's completely dominating the jungle right now. Since those other assassins were pushed down, he has no competition, making him the absolute best chance in that class of champions at the moment. While the general idea behind assassins is that they need to snowball hard and fast, you don't have to be in such a rush with KASSADIN. He doesn't need to be obscenely fed to carry games. He just needs to farm up, reach your first couple of evolutions, and play for picks around objectives. The next pick that we have is Victor. Like KASSADIN, he's another example of a champion that is supposed to have incredibly strong late game scaling, but is making it to the late game a little bit too consistently. He's just such a low risk, high reward pick. Once you augment your E, you don't really need to interact with your opponent. Just auto shove waves with your laser and just back off as you wait for the next one. Speaking of Victor, odds are if you're a League player, you've seen Arcane on Netflix, and if you haven't, you really should. It's really good. But anyway, that's not the point. Usually our question of the day pertains to the meta, but for today, I just want to know what you felt about the show. So today's question of the day is, who is your favorite character in Arcane and why? Also, who's your least favorite character? I have a feeling that everybody's gonna say Jace. Let us know your answers down in the comments below. Try to keep the answers spoiler free for those who haven't watched it yet, and now without further ado, let's get back into the video. Vayne was already doing super well in the last couple of months of Season 11, but the addition of the new Lethal Tempo has pushed her even further ahead. Previously, you had 2 rune choices for Vayne, Halo Blaze for the early game, or Press the Attack for better scaling. But the new Lethal Tempo takes away from you needing to make that choice. It's good at every stage of the game, especially if you can get a fight extended long enough to fully stack for that bonus range. But synergizing well with the new rune isn't enough to make an ADC S tier. Vayne's biggest strength is how she's able to pump out immense amounts of single target damage, all the while being stealth, tumbling around and peeling herself with Condemn. A support pick that makes its way back into the list is Blitzcrank. As we talked about it before, Blitzcrank makes a list simply due to the other champions in the meta. Currently, enchanters are the most popular for support mains. They have decent trading in lane and scale super hard into mid-game teamfights. But Blitzcrank makes playing the game very unfun for enchanters. The immobile, squishy targets are basically free food that you can spoon feed to your carry. And if you're playing the enchanters yourself, well, it makes a lot of sense because, come on, you guys are a snack. Anyway, if you guys end up an opponent that is playing super respectful and conceding the lane entirely, then you can also turn your sights elsewhere, usually waddling up for the mid lane for a gank. And if you want a champion that is basically guaranteed to give you 1v9 carry status, look no further than Jax. It's not an exaggeration to say that I've seen a Jax kill a champion that has 1 or 2 items over him in straight up 1v1s. And once Jax reaches that point, the game becomes very difficult for the enemy team to navigate properly. If you send the wrong person to match Jax, he just kills them, maybe even under tower, and then takes the tower afterwards, and then your dignity. If you send too many people, Jax can likely escape the gank with a ward hop, and then his team likely gets to win the game on the other side of the map. Leaving him 1v0 definitely isn't an option. A Jax left unchecked for even a minute can go ahead and push a lane down, or even threaten to end the game in just a few seconds. Finishing off our list, we have Lux. She was stuck with the label of support for a pretty long time, but those buffs that she got on 11.21 have turned her into an insanely strong mid laner. Like I just mentioned, she's insane in lane, able to bully out opponents as early as level 1. Post 6, she has some pretty decent kill pressure, but rather than just sitting mid, throwing out snares from max range against her opponent, use her ability to get priority in lanes to look for roams. Her kit having both CC and huge burst makes her an aggressive jungler's best friend. And that about wraps things up for our predictions for the 15 most broken champions on patch 11.21. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, be sure you sub so you never miss out on any of our content like this. Remember, let us know your favorite character in Arcane down in the comments below. And one last thing, don't forget to check out our Discord in the description box below, where you can go ahead and discuss the league further or just hang out and be a part of the community. I can't wait to see you guys back in the next video, but until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and have a wonderful day. Peace.